Kevin Harland is a Senior Operations Manager at Intelligent Steel Solutions based in Peterlee. He's got a brilliant reputation in the industry, having worked for companies like Mechtool and Cleveland Bridge. This was such an interesting episode where we really dig into both manufacturing, good old British manufacturing, and also management and management techniques. How important is culture in the workplace? How does an experienced manager adapt in many different situations? And should they have an open door policy? Just some of the questions we tackle in today's episode. Kevin is so passionate about the industry he works in, and we discuss in depth about his challenges, but also what makes it so great. You're going to love this episode. I hope you enjoy. Kevin, warm welcome to the Manufacturers Leaders podcast. Really happy to have you on. I always start with the same question. What does it mean to you to be a leader?
I don't consider myself to be a leader. Basically, I'm more a custodian for the future of the business. That's my job, is basically to try and make the business give it as much longevity as we possibly can. For me, a leader is somebody who's doing something great, so someone who inspires people, somebody who leads a nation or something like that. I think anybody who's a leader has got to have done something that's different to what everybody else does. I think from me, I just consider myself to be a manager, and I think a lot of people in my position are managers rather than leaders, and basically you're doing what you can to develop and change the company within somebody else's vision to a certain extent. I'd like to think that I inspire my team to do the best job that they possibly can. And I like change, so I tend to challenge people to change things, to do things better, to do things quicker, and basically to better themselves at the same time as well. I never set out to do what I'm doing. It was basically just something that I fall into, and I think that's the same with a lot of people. You sort of, because you become good or you seem to be good by other people, you tend to go through that promotion process, and it evolves over time. So in terms of a leader, like I said, for me, somebody like Winston Churchill or whatever is a leader. They're inspirational with quotes and leading people and have a clear vision of what they want to do and where they want to go. We're sort of the marshals that are underneath that do what we need to do and get on with it, and we're the ones who, as I said, we're a custodian for the future of the business.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, though, most good leaders are quite modest and humble, and you probably fall in that category. It's one of those. But what you said there is really interesting, actually, because I agree. Some people manage because that's what they've always wanted to do. Some people are managers because they're just good at what they do, and that's organically molded them into management. Because, like you say, people tend to do that. You say you've gone more down that path. What do you say in terms of it just happened to you?
Yeah, 100%. As I said, I'm the same as everybody else. When I left school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I took, you call it the easy route or whatever, to try and buy myself a little bit of time. I went to college and did my A-levels and what have you. I had far too much of a good time when I was at college and didn't particularly do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So then I ended up with a couple of years of sort of, for want of a better word, bumming about and trying to decide what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go to. I didn't particularly want to get into engineering, but it just sort of happened, so, and it's just, as you said, it's organically sort of gone on from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and so I finally ended up sort of where I am now.
How did that first engineering role come about then? Was it just by chance, just fell into it?
Well, it was basically, I was engaged to my wife, and the job that I was doing wasn't great at the time. So my father-in-law worked he worked for Cleveland Bridge, and he just basically said, there's a temporary contract on offer, it's 6 weeks worth of work. Would you fancy coming down and doing? I thought, well, I might as well, for the money was decent at the time compared to what I was on in other places. So I took the 6 weeks contract, and then I got offered a full-time contract from that point on. But at that point, I was classed as semi-skilled, so I was crane driving, I was using the grinder to clean the edges of plate girders and all sorts of things like that. So I was basically sort of at the bottom of the rung, if you like, but everybody starts sort of somewhere, and that was my sort of that was my starting point anyway.
Can you remember, because some people reflect back and go, I'm so pleased I'm not there anymore, I'm so pleased I've promoted. Other people go, I miss those days, there's less pressure, so on and so. Where would you sit? Do you know what I mean? How do you find those days to reflect?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it was different for me because I've never been in that environment. The first day I walked in, you just be normal in the other place, and some of the size of the structures that we go through, and it was just basically, wow, look at this, you know. And to be fair, the first couple of years were absolutely brilliant, and then I got to a point where I thought, well, I can actually do more than this. You know, and that wasn't sort of me being sort of big-headed, and you know, there's plenty of guys who have done that job and they've done it brilliantly all the work of their lives, and I take my hat off to them if that's what they want to do and that's where they want to be. Then that's brilliant, you know. They provide for the wives and the families and all the rest of it. But for me, I just thought, no, I can be better than this. I can do better than this.
I find that interesting because I resonate with that, and I completely agree. For people who have a job for life and stay in that position, you know, the massive pros to that, and fair play to people like that, because it's important. But obviously you get a number of people, and I put myself in that bracket, where for whatever reason you just decide that you want more. Can you what do you pinpoint that, put that down to, you say, in terms of why you want one of them?
I just thought I wasn't particularly challenged in what I was doing. You know, I enjoyed the job, don't get me wrong, and I love the guys that I worked with, and I got on really well with everybody, and we worked well, and we had a decent laugh and all the rest of it, which is everything that you want from a job, really. Yeah. But the satisfaction side of things wasn't quite there. We got a new MD, a guy called Peterlee, and he basically stood up in front of the workforce and told us where we were going to go, what we wanted to do, and he basically said to my door is always open. So maybe May decided to go and kick his door open and say, I'm wasted doing what I'm doing. So he said, what do you want to do? So I said, right, I'd like to sort of do more. I'd like to get into the planning side of things of the business and understand the business more and what have you. And he just went, all right, no bother, what's your name? Took my name, and then I didn't think any more of it. And then I got a tap on the shoulder one day, and it was, you're going in the planning department. So and then it took off from there to a certain extent.
And then obviously you've worked in that environment for a long time. So did that then become a bit of a passion for you on the planning side?
It became a little bit strange, actually, because I went into the planning department, but it wasn't demarcation, but there was a lot of union involvement and what have you in the business at the time. So I wasn't really recognised because I was semi-skilled and I didn't have a trade and what have you. So as I said, they put me through an apprenticeship role. It was the only way that they were going to allow me to progress within the business is if I had a trade behind me. So I did a fabrication apprenticeship. I did it over 2 years rather than the traditional 4, based on the fact that I'd already been on the shop floor for a couple of years. Once I'd finished that, I stopped on the shop floor for a year or 2 afterwards, and then eventually migrated into the planning department.
Excellent, nice. Out of interest, you know, the tactics that you took there with an open door policy. You know, not all MDs do that, and you've obviously now worked for a number of MDs. Do you think that is the right way to work? You know, to own a business and work there, because there's so many different styles you'll come across, I imagine.
Yeah, there's a line. There's that where people want to come in and they actually want to talk about things that affect the company and take it forward and what have you. Then you get the other side of the line where people just want to come in and have a chat and a cup of coffee, and there's nothing wrong with that either, because it's nice to get to know people and what have you as well. So it is not double. I agree 100% with it. I think it's what everybody should be doing. At the end of the day, the guys on the shop floor or the guys in the offices and what have you, they're the ones who make or lose your money. And if you're not going to listen to them, you might as well just burn your £5 notes now.
Yeah, and I guess it allowed you to accelerate your career, because potentially if you'd not had that conversation with you, you know, you might have been stuck in there for a little longer than you anticipated. So,
yeah.
In terms of the management, then, when was the first sort of steps into managing a team? How did that come about?
That was it. I went through Cleveland Bridge. I got to a point where, again, because of it's me rather than anything else, was I couldn't see me going any further within Cleveland Bridge. It was, I knew that the works manager was leaving, but I also knew that I wouldn't be considered for it because somebody else would be considered for it, somebody more experienced and what have you. Again, I had no problem with that. I took a decision at that point that I was going to leave and I would go somewhere else. So I left and I went to a company called Mechtool Engineering. It was different. I've been in Cleveland Bridge for 16 years, so it was a massive step to go to a relatively small company in comparison. But it was a good step at the same time. So I went in as the senior planning manager, basically overseeing the planning of all the contracts. Within about 4 to 5 months, the company wasn't going in the direction that they wanted to go in at the time. So we basically had a meeting over on the shop floor and what have you. And then within a couple of weeks after that, because of some of the ideas that I came up with, basically said, would you fancy going in and doing the operations manager? It was a general manager role at the time. So I said yes. And then basically from that point, so one day I'm a planner, the next I'm a manager. So it's, you know, it was a little bit, whoa, what's going on here, you know? So,
yeah, and did you, because many companies do, did you have much support on the management side, or was it very much a sink and swim, learn on the job sort of?
I had loads of support. I worked with some fantastic people. I've been lucky in everything that I've done, that I've worked with some great people who support you, people who want to develop you and help you develop and what have you as well. So, and that's not just sort of from the MD, that's people who I've worked with as well, who are really enthusiastic about helping you. And, you know, I've worked with more people that want to help you than people who try and put you down, to be honest. So, and it's been brilliant. You know, I've enjoyed 99% of it, but obviously there's always that little bit that you don't enjoy. But yeah, I've worked for some brilliant companies as well along the way, and I've been lucky in that respect as well.
Obviously, management can be challenging. Do you think, if you think about the day one there when you were first starting out on the management world, do you think your challenges have changed from what they were there to what they are now, would you say?
Yeah, the expectancy's changed. I think when you first go in, it's just basically you're all keen and enthusiastic and you think you know everything. And again, that's part of where, you know, the process of my managing director at Mechtool was brilliant, and he used to keep me in check to say, no, you know, have a look at this, but at the same time, he would never discourage me from doing anything. Okay. So, and then it's just basically a case of, and I still believe it now, if you don't try something, you're never going to know. You can always go back to where you were, but if you don't try it, you're never going to move forward. So, and he basically encouraged me to do that. It was basically try. If you think you try it, if it doesn't work, you can go back to do what you were doing before. And basically that's where it's gone from.
And how much of influence do you think, either good or bad? Because I guess a lot of management is experience comes from how we were managed typically. Yeah. How I guess in the early days, well, how much of your management style do you think was influenced, either good and bad, by previous managers, would you say, for your?
I've taken it both ways. I've worked for, and one of your questions on there was about managers. I've worked for two guys who, I wasn't going to say influence, but basically sort of molded me. If you're a guy called Jim O'Neill at Cleveland Bridge. Jim was my manager at Cleveland. And he was the first one who sort of said, you know, you can do more than what you do, and why don't you think about doing this? Why don't you think about doing that? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have a look at this, have a look at that. And then they put the academic side into it as well, saying, right, if you're going to do it, have a look at this. What about getting this qualification? What do you think about this? And sort of really sort of pushing me from that point. And then I also worked for a guy called Keith Bell at Mechtool. Keith was very, very similar to Jim in the fact that he knew what he wanted and he was driven. And he basically insisted that everybody who worked for him were as good, if not better than he was. So he basically pushed you, and he didn't bully you, but it was basically come on, let's get this done. Let's, you know, this is the vision, what we want to do, go and deliver it. Tell me how we're going to deliver it and what have you, and basically took it from there. Excellent,
I love that. Which of those styles would you say now, you know, if someone asked you what type of manager you would be, do you think you've almost utilized some of those styles into how you manage now, would you say?
I don't think there is a style. I think I've been asked this one before, and basically, I think any manager, you have to adapt to the situation. So I always consider myself to be a bit of a chameleon. So if I'm dealing with one person, you deal with that totally different to the way I could deal with somebody else. You know, sort of, I come to work on a daily basis, and I come to work to enjoy myself as much as anything else. I like to have a bit of a laugh in the office and what have you as well. But again, that's got to be tailored to the people that you're working with and the situation that you're in. So if I'm with a client, I'm extremely professional. If I'm with the guys here, I'll mess about and do silly things, you know. But it all goes towards like upping the morale for the guys as well. So, and again, it's that encouraging people to do it, but when you need to, is basically putting your foot down and making people aware that that's what you want to do. So as I said, for me, you're a chameleon. There isn't a one-stop fits all. I mean, years ago it used to be, they put you in brackets and say you're either authoritarian or you're laissez-faire or you're whatever. You've got to be all. You can't be one. You've got to be all, depending on the situation.
I really like that, actually. I'm surprised that's never been mentioned here, because that resonates so much. Because it is that, you know, good managers, like you said, they adapt the style to the person, and some people need an arm round, some people need a push, don't they? And that can even change on a weekly basis sometimes. So no, I think that's a great way. I also think that bleeds into culture. I think engineering, manufacturing probably over the years previously lent itself to quite an old school, archaic, you know, unionized type culture. You've obviously worked with a lot of different types of companies. How crucial would you say culture is, and do you think the importance of that has changed over the last 30 years?
I think, yeah, the culture is totally different to what it was. As you said, it used to be quite a unionised environment and what have you. And don't get me wrong, I think unions are brilliant. I think they're there for the benefit of anybody who wants to be in a union. I have absolutely total respect for unions as they are, but they've actually changed and developed as the years have gone on as well. So, I mean, one of the big things used to be about a plater was a plater, a welder was a welder, a semi-skilled guy was a semi-skilled guy. That was it. Never the past, you know, they can't cross over. The unions were involved in, you know, they knew that everything needed to change, so they went down the fabricator route so people can do all of them. You know, you're not just, because you do one thing, yes, you are fully trained as a plater or a welder, but you can do the other one as well. You know, and I think that's the culture that is changed completely, especially in manufacturing, is just because you do one thing doesn't necessarily mean that that's where you're stuck at. You can do more than what you actually believe at any one time. And it's just developing that as well. So again, culture is, if you've got that, I've worked for a company that basically, especially the larger companies, is you pigeonholed, that's what you do. You know, if you're a planner, you plan. If you're a manager, you manage your area, and you don't get involved in the other areas and what have you as well. You're allowed a little bit to say, but nobody tends to take any notice of you. Within a smaller organisation, you have no choice. You've got to be involved in every part of that organisation, so you can influence what is going on, and you can make people think differently and all the rest of it. I've read quite a few books on sort of management and what have you, and they always say it takes 7 years to change a culture. I don't think it does. It probably does in a large organisation because it's difficult. It is like shoving a boulder uphill and then you've got to keep trying to put your peg in. On a smaller organisation, it's a lot easier because people are more open to change and to trying to take things forward, and they can see the picture a lot more. Whereas in a larger one, as I said, you sort of pigeonholed into it. So for me, culture plays a massive part in any business. If the culture is right, the business usually is right at the same time. So as I said, I worked for Mechtool for about 10 years. The culture there was fantastic. It was all about development of people, development of the company, and what can we do to make things better on a day-by-day basis. I mean, even things like, used to put fruit in the breakout room. There was a breakout room with a TV, there was free coffee, newspapers were in there, just making people feel comfortable and confident in what they were doing on a day-by-day basis.
Yeah, and it's so important. And I guess outside looking in now, speaking to people who leave roles or want to leave roles, as we do on a daily basis, it's more important than ever. I think it's more important post-COVID, I would say. People want more from the job than they perhaps used to. Not that people accepted they were a number 30 years ago, but I think the mentality has changed now that, you know, they work for a large period of time and you want to make sure you're happy, like you say, that example there is perfect. You want to feel comfortable. You don't want to feel that you're at work and then you're at home and the two are completely separate. I think if you can merge two together, it's winning.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, and part of it as well is your work-life balance as well. It's not taking your job home with you and having time for your wife, your kids, and the things that you want to do as well, rather than just being everything about work.
Yeah.
You know, so again, somebody once said to me, there's plenty of dead men in the graveyard who think the company can't do without them, and it's true. You know, you get these people who work and work and work and work and work, and they're workaholics, and then, but you've got to have that balance as well. You've got to balance the thing out.
100%. How have you, would you say you've managed that quite well over the years, or again, is that something you've changed? No, difficult.
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, in my early days, because I wanted to achieve everything today, you're driving all the time, and I've had holidays spoiled because I've had my phone with me on holiday, and you get a phone call and there's nothing you can do about it. But it's getting that realization of, I'm on holiday, I'm turning it off, and that's it. Anything that's sorted, I'm only away for a week or a fortnight, I'll sort it when I get back. But I think when you first start out, you're that sort of keen and enthusiastic to get everything sort of done, and you want to be like the be all and end all to everybody, that you forget about the other things, and you shouldn't. You've got to take that into account. It's all part of, I mean, everybody goes on about mental health and things like that as well, and it's all part of it. You know, if you've got the right attitude and your mental health right, you tend to do a better job. So why shouldn't you enjoy yourself outside of work?
Yeah, and I think that then leads into managing teams, and then the responsibility you've got, I think, with your teams, and you come across like someone who would be, you know, very aware of that. I would imagine. So is that a big part of your job now, I guess, in terms of making sure?
I mean, my job is to, as I said to you before, Keith Bell always said to me, you have to surround yourself with people who are better than you, and that's basically what I'm trying to do now. Is, you know, I'll surround myself with people who know how to do that job better. My job is to learn off them. Their job is to learn off me. So, and it's a two-way street, you know. And for me, it's all about, if you can develop somebody and they can become better, you know, then you have to do it, because if you don't, they're going to leave. They'll go somewhere else where they can be better, they can develop, or they can get more money, or whatever. But it's not all about the money. It's about that job satisfaction side of things as well, and helping people. And say one of the things that's gone now as well a lot is the sort of blame culture. You know, we don't tend to have that, or I haven't come across that for a few years now. It's more about, right, what happened? How can we stop it? How do we learn? How do we take it forward? You know, how do we stop it going again? And for me, that's the way that it should be. So it comes down to people being comfortable in what they do and being allowed to make their mistakes, as long as they learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, love that. Obviously, culture's changed massively over time. Manufacturing's obviously changed a lot over a period of time. Imagine from your first days in it. What are the key things you've seen massively change over time within manufacturing, would you say, and engineering, that you've noticed?
Cost.
Right, yeah.
Everything is cost. I've got a bit of a thing about British manufacturing. I believe that we are as good, if not better, than anybody else, in the same way that I think the Germans make the best cars. That's why we buy German cars. But, you know, and us as manufacturers are as good, if not better, than anybody else. But the problem that we've got at the moment is it's dying. And the reason it's dying is because we import so much from abroad. So, I mean, even things like, there was a bridge built in Scotland and it was built by Chinese. Why are we putting something out to China? Why wouldn't you just pay an extra few pounds and keep that and keep your economy in the UK? I can't understand it. You know, there is actually a skills drain now in, you know, if you try and go and get people now, even in, like I said, fabrication side of things like iron and plating and welding, you're paying top dollar for people. Yeah. You know, and it's because people haven't been trained over a period of time, because manufacturing is dwindling and dying. You know, as I said, I worked for Cleveland Bridge for 16 years, and that company was 120, 130 years old, and yet it's gone. You know, and that's not because they can't do the job, because they can do that job as good, if not better, than anybody else. It's because of cost. It's because of a lack of investment in not just in plant, but in people, and things like that going forward. I don't think we do enough to keep our manufacturing in-house. I mean, even things like clothing, how many clothing companies were in the northeast of England and have now gone, and we go and buy something from Taiwan or whatever, and you're marking it up as Marks and Spencer's when it used to be called Odds Clothing in Sunderland and things like that. And I just don't understand it. We have the skills, we have the people, the costs are slightly more, but surely you must be willing, there's a balance between a cost and the development of people in our own economy. I'm sure if we kept things in-house, the economy would grow more than what it is at the moment.
Apologies for interrupting this podcast for a very quick 30-second pitch of my business. Theo James are a specialist manufacturing and engineering recruitment search firm based in Seaham in the northeast. If you're looking for any staff or a new opportunity yourself, from a semi-skilled level right the way up to C-suite executive, then please get in touch. We have a specialist consultant in each discipline ready to help. I'm extremely proud of what we've built over the years, and I'd love to extend that service out to you. Thank you. Enjoy the podcast. I completely agree. How do you think we change that? Because you're right, it all comes down to cost, and business owners, unfortunately, will always look at the P&L. Simple as that. But how do you think to reverse engineer that? Because it is getting worse. How do you think that changes? Is it government help? Is it training?
Yeah, a bit of everything. I think the apprenticeship programs that the government have launched are brilliant. And that for me is the way to go. Is one of your questions was about academia and what have you. The best apprentices and the best apprenticeships are done where you're on the job. Yeah. So you're getting the academic qualification, but you're also getting the experience of what you're actually doing. So you're putting what you think you learn in practice on a day-by-day basis. But there's not enough of that. It's limited on the amount of apprentices that are out there at the moment. In terms of sort of the business side of things, is why would you put a bridge out to China when you can do it in the UK? No, why would you put shipbuilding out to France when you can do it in the UK? Why are all these companies going abroad to get things done? Because it's cheaper. Yeah. But even things like call centres and what have you, either like them or you hate them. How many people phone you up from a call centre and you haven't got a clue what they're saying? Mm-hmm. Because it's broken English and things like that. Why aren't they in the UK? Yeah. Why send it somewhere? And it's all down to cost. Mm-hmm. But if you say to people, your phone contract is going to be an extra £2 a month, but your call centre is going to be in the UK, would you not?
Yeah, which I think might be talk, or one of them does guarantee that. It does, because you're right. If you've got a problem, it's easy. So no, I completely agree, and there needs to be a shift because, like you say, massive contracts like that need to be brought into UK because we've got it. Like you say, we've got everything here. The logistically it works in the UK. All right, there's a skill shortage, but that can be managed and that can be reverse engineered. And like you say, the apprenticeship is massive. One of my clients last week needed a HR apprentice, and she found 6 months or 4 or 5 months until she had any applications. Yeah. And it's crazy. It's crazy. It's that I still think comes down to a lack of awareness in schools and colleges, but more so probably early on in schools about what you can achieve in this sector, because I just think it's the unknown.
I don't blame the schools, to be perfectly honest with you. I think the schools do a fantastic job. I think my own 2 boys have come through school and they've both come out with really good qualifications and what have you, and their school life has been brilliant. Mm-hmm. They enjoy school and what have you. But I think you're right, to a certain extent, it's that lack of knowledge of what is out there afterwards. I had the same. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school, but at the time, manufacturing was big. So it was basically manufacturing or shop work or whatever. If you were academic, then you would go into accountancy or whatever, But nowadays, the choices aren't particularly varied, and nobody's really going into the schools and saying, right, let's have this is a careers open day. Do it once, but why not do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year and get companies involved in it as well and saying, right, we're doing this careers open day. If you're looking for apprentices, get them in. Even get yourselves involved in it with sort of, these are the job offers that you're on, and these are the types of qualifications that you need. You don't actually find that out until you've left school. Nobody, unless 99% of children who finish school do not know what they want to do when they finish it. So why not give them a variety of options for them to have a look at while they're at school, and then tailor their education to it.
Yeah, and everyone agrees. And this thing. I mean, I went to university and I loved it. Don't get me wrong, but is it the best route nowadays? Probably not, unless you want something specific. Because to come out with a 35, 40 grand debt with a generic history degree or whatever, do you mean when? I just think it's a lack of awareness of, like you say, they don't know what they do. So the obvious route is, oh, I'll keep education, and actually it hasn't benefited them. But I think if you know at 12, 13 years old, if you walk around a factory, that you never know. That could change the mindset of 15% of young boys and girls, and then they become into engineering. And again, huge minorities in manufacturing still, which needs to be looked at massively.
I just look at my own two boys. They're both gone down the quantity surveying route. Both. My oldest one is 26, 27, and he's just finishing his degree. But he's got all that experience of working in different environments and what have you, and he's got no debt. Yes, it's taken him longer, but he's got no debt at the end of it. My youngest one is doing the same. He's at college at the moment, but he's only there 1 day a week, and he's learning on a job on a day-by-day basis. Now, there are certain jobs, which is like a QS and what have you, where you can do that. There's others where you need to go to university, things like architecture and things like that, where you've got to learn and the mathematics side of things and what have you. Then yeah, but there's other jobs where if you did an apprenticeship, the company gets the benefit of the person. The person gets paid and they get the academic qualification that goes with it as well. And the longevity of the person, because they've had the training in that company, will be there as well. They'll want to stop there because they've had all that training put into them, they enjoy the business that they're working within, and they can see there's progression there as well.
Yeah, 100%. I still think it's apprenticeships is a little bit of a dirty word when it shouldn't be. It can be complete opposite. The complete opposite, because like everything you said there, I massively resonate with, and hopefully things can change because everyone seems to be on the same page. It's just there needs to be a bit of a movement now to get things moving. Something as that.
Yeah.
Would you, in terms of you work some brilliant companies in all shapes and sizes. The business you work for now, I guess, is a smaller business, isn't it? I mean, in terms of size wise, what?
Yeah, the part that I work in is it's a brilliant business. It's the product is fantastic. It's just getting it out there is the difficult part at the moment.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier to work for a business of that size? We have to wear many hats, having had the experience you have working for larger corporate firms and having that exposure. Would you say
it's not easier? I think the challenges are different. As I said, I don't just look after the fabrication side of things. I'm doing procurement. You get involved in quality. I'm involved in health and safety. I try and get involved in the design and engineering, even though I think I interfere. But it's just basically you've got to be involved in every part of the organisation, the profit and loss, and everything really. As I said, with a larger one, you're pigeonholed. That's what you do. Get on with it. And to be fair, like I said, the larger ones, it might be the fact that you've got 200 or 300 people working underneath you, so you've got to be like the figurehead for that. Whereas a smaller one, there might be 40 people in the company, and so everybody's got to work together. The challenges are different. It's still a challenge, and it can still be quite stressful at times. And sometimes the monetary side of things can be an issue as well, whereas larger organisations don't tend to suffer from that. So, and it's just a balance between them.
Yeah, I love that. Excellent stuff. I've got some, a number of sort of quicker questions, I guess. I'll start with the guest question, which was from Atif Syed, who's the MD and founder from Wutsano, unbelievable company. It's manufactures dexterous robots. He's passionate about the Northeast. He's not from the Northeast. He's passionate about the Northeast. And his question was, how do we improve the region? It links into your question about the UK, but how do you improve the Northeast as a region when it comes to manufacturing and engineering in comparison to the rest of the UK?
The Northeast is synonymous with manufacturing. So we have built some of the the most iconic structures in the world. So even in our own country, one of the first contracts I was involved with at Cleveland Bridge was Canary Wharf, and there was nothing there. It was the first one that went up. Hong Kong Exhibition Centre, the bridge that links Singapore to China, the bridge that was done for the Olympics in Greece and things like that. These are massively iconic structures that these companies around the Northeast have been involved in. The skills are here. You know, there is a passion for engineering, which goes right the way back from your shipbuilding right the way through, and probably before that, to be honest. But as I said, at the moment, for me, it just feels like it's dying. There tends to be a lot of smaller organisations, and a lot of the bigger contracts are going to foreign investment. I think it's getting that investment back into the UK and getting that investment back into manufacturing and stop the drain of export and import stop the drain of import, of putting things out that can be done in-house rather than sending them out.
Yeah, love that. This is a question he didn't ask, but I want to ask on behalf of him, because he opened my mind and changed my mindset actually about robotics a little bit. Obviously, what they do is they manufacture robotics which essentially picks up fruit and handles fruit like a human would. Manufacturing's changed over time. Obviously, automation technology is unbelievable now. How do you see robotics and technology change in manufacturing, would you say?
It'll make it quicker. It should make it more efficient. But obviously, you've got the investment in the robots and what have you. So you've got to make sure that the payback and everything is there as well. From my perspective, where I am at the moment, we could use a form of automation in what we do. You'd still need human involvement in it, but it could make it quicker. It could make it better. You could get more product out the door and do things better. So at the moment, we try to work on a floor every 3 weeks. So basically, if we're doing a high-rise building, it'd be a floor every 3 weeks. If you use something like that, you could probably knock it down to a floor every 2 weeks with a bit of investment and without upping your labour. But then obviously your labour becomes better because they become trained on the robots and things like that, no programming and what have you. So again, it's probably like a change in direction. I think we've got to embrace it. I think we've got to embrace the technology that's there, and we should be using it more. And it's not about doing away with people's jobs, it's about doing things better. And it's about getting the longevity of your products. So instead of going out to the market and you've only got a range of products that will last you X amount of, by using the technology and whatever, you can divert into different markets and what have you as well.
Yeah, love that. Completely agree. Right, some random questions. What 3 things make up a good leader? 3 words, 3 things.
I don't think there is 3 things. For instance, as I said earlier on, for me, you're a comedian, you've got to do everything. Yeah. It's got to be, everything you do has got to be, you do it differently, you treat every situation differently. I don't think there is any particular traits. I think it's more about how you deal with situations on a day-by-day basis.
Yeah, love that. Excellent. A lot of these questions we've already answered as part of the conversation, but can you think of a challenge that you've ever had, or perhaps within the business something you've had to implement that's had a positive change? Because I'm always keen for people to learn from people like you in terms of something you've changed or developed in a business.
We're doing it all the time. I mean, as I said, I actively encourage my guys to come up with different ways of doing things and what have you as well. So we've just changed around the way that we do things on the shop floor. It's been evolving for about the last year or so. So when I first started, we had something like £750,000 worth of WIP on the shop floor, and we basically weren't getting any product out because we weren't finishing anything, because there was loads of product just scattered all over the place. We've changed that completely now. We'll be lucky if we've got £75,000 worth of WIP on the shop floor. And basically the way that the guys now, it's not a production line, but it is almost a production line, because it can't be a production line because of the product that we do. But we've gone from, our record a couple of months ago was making a panel in 5 hours. Now we're doing it in just over 2.5. So we've halved the tap time, if you like, for what we do. And we know that there's a hell of a lot more we can pull out of that as well. But that's all I'm doing, is facilitating it and getting these guys out here they're the ones who are coming up with it and saying, what if we try this, what if we try that? And we've had some disasters along the way, but it's just basically getting them into that mindset to change different things. Even sort of, and this isn't me, this is our design team, is reducing the amount of steel in our products as well. So taking it back to, it's fit for purpose. You know, we're designing and building it. It's not bomb-proof, and it's not going to survive a nuclear attack. So stop building it to survive a nuclear attack. It's a building that needs to go up. It's got to last however many years. Just design it to that. Yeah. And they've started doing that and taking out a lot of the steel and fixings and things out of it as well. So, and then just taking it as, you know, it's fit for purpose. It's not, you know, as I said, bomb-proof and nuclear-proof and all the rest of it. It's fit for purpose.
Yeah, excellent stuff. And in terms of the next sort of 12 months, 18 months for ISS, Intelligent Sales Solutions, like any firm right now, we've got our challenges with costs and issues. Still some nice stuff planned, I imagine, though, still for the business.
It's tough. The environment is tough at the moment. Getting sales in, it's a really competitive market, and you've got to have a USP. What is your USP? So at the moment, we're trying to discover what that is. We are reaching out to other businesses, so things like garden rooms, things like garden furniture. Traditionally, we have been totally reliant on our holding company to give us work. So they go out, they buy land, they develop it, and what have you. We've got to get away from that. We've got to be self-sufficient as a company. So we've got to start thinking differently about what we're actually doing, which is what we're trying to do now. As I said, we're reaching out to different companies in different sectors. Some are positives, some are not so positive. But if you don't try, you'll never know. So basically, that's where we're at the moment. We're trying to develop our range of products. Personally, as I said, I've done manufacturing. I've been involved in heavy manufacturing and what have you as well. This is probably the best product I've ever been involved with. It works. It's as simple as that. So, and then if you wanted to, let's say if you wanted to build a module, so we could build a module in 2 days, whereas traditional it'd be 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks by the time you do everything. Yeah. You know, but it's actually getting into the mindset of people that there is a different way to do things, but you've just got to have a look at it and try and embrace it as well at the same time.
Yeah, those efficiencies, love that, excellent, and your best luck with everything. And look, I've really enjoyed this, Kevin. I always try and think of my takeaways, and there's loads. I think one thing you mentioned there, I think the common theme has been, which massive takeaway for me, was that I think sometimes as leaders we put this pressure on ourselves to lead and to be the voice and to be everything to people, and I think that can cause a lot of pain sometimes, to some extent, a lot of pressure. But I love the fact the facilitation as a leader you mentioned, in terms of, you know, and have the humility to say that I don't need or need to be. I want to be the best at everything. I need you to be the best, and it's my job to put the right people in the right places. So I've really took a lot away from that, and I've just really enjoyed talking about manufacturing as a whole. You know, I love manufacturing. I completely agree. British manufacturing is and should be the best in the world, and we've got some challenges, but as everyone's on the same page, we just need to tackle those together and have a voice. So look, thank you very much, Kevin. It's been an honor. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thanks very much for your time.